Hi everybody, it's Marcy and Chunk here again with another edition of Chunky Knitted Creations. Today I have a very good tutorial for you that I'm really excited about. And this is actually going to be a two-for-one tutorial where I teach you how to make two different things, because basically you stop about halfway through and you've got one item, and then you keep going and you can make a second item. So it's going to be a combo of how to make an oval rug, or how to make an oval pet bed without having to use the dreaded single crochet stitch. Now you will have to, on the sides of it, do the method that we call like add a border to a blanket. So it's similar to the single crochet stitch, but not as hard, and I will teach you how to do that. I also did a video on how to add a border to a blanket, so you can just go and look at that before you start your pet bed, just to kind of get familiar with it, but I'll walk you through it also. Today I'm going to use one of my new colors that I'm so excited about because it happens to be my birthstone. This is Purple Dusk. Isn't it beautiful? I almost named it Purple Haze, but I went with Purple Dusk. And this isn't quite a full skein. I used a little bit of it for practice and because I loved it so much. It goes great with my existing color lavender that I already had. Look at the two together. So beautiful. Released 10 new colors recently on in my Amazon store. First one was rainbow yarn, which I am the one and only person to ever make a true rainbow chunky yarn. And this has all the true real colors of the rainbow. So if you see anybody else make it, they're just a copycat, sorry. But it's beautiful, so go check it out. And then I've got a true red that is actually a nice bright Christmas red that doesn't look like a burgundy, and white. And my two more signature colors, Coral Reef, which is a combination of a teal and a beige and a peach and a mint green that's just stunning. I actually should have brought them all to show you, but there's a video at the top of my channel that shows all 10 new colors anyway, so I'll quit bragging about that. So for the pet bed, I'm going to do, it's going to be mostly this color, but I'm going to show you how to make a center that looks like a flower, and it's really pretty. So you're just going to need a little bit of whatever color you choose. I'm going to use just a tiny bit of the lavender for the center, and then I'm going to do the pet bed itself, the round pet bed in the Purple Dusk. And then for the trim, which looks really good, this is an optional feature, I'm going to use some loop yarn, and we're going to add a border around the edge of it with this loop yarn, and it looks beautiful. Lady actually did this in my group for us, and she didn't want to do the full entire tutorial, and I told her I would do it, so thank you, Catherine, for that. I was actually getting ready to make a tutorial for the oval rug, and then she did her pet bed and showed me how to use the loop yarn around the edges. So come to our group. There's so much great stuff going on there. Facebook group, Chunky Yarn Blanketeers, and I also just started another Facebook group. We've got about 25,000 members total between the two groups. I have a beginners Facebook group that's called Beginners Blanket, or Chunky Yarn Blankets Making, sorry. I was going to rename the group, so go to one of those. I'll drop both links in the comments, and let's get started. So you're only going to need a little bit of yarn for the beginning, and we are going to start off, actually I think I already cut a piece of this off. We're going to start off just like you would a hat or anything round that you're going to make, and we're going to knit in the round. And we're going to cast on 8 with this first color and just knit 2 small rows of 8. So actually you need to leave a tail, you know, about this length, just like you always do, so you can cast off and close it up. 8 small stitches because it's not a blanket. So 2, and if you don't know how to do this part, please go to my beginner blanket tutorial, and I show it nice and slow how to cast on, make a cast on chain for anything. You're always going to do this for whether you're knitting in the round or knitting a blanket, unless you're doing a single crochet stitch. Then it's a completely different one. This is going to make about a 20-inch pet bed. You can keep going and make it bigger if you want, or cut off a few rows and make it smaller depending on the size of the pet. They're great for cats and dogs. There's people in my group that are just sell probably 10 of these a week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I got 9 there. Double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Probably wouldn't hurt to do 9. All right, so just like any other knit in the circle, you're gonna turn it, push it together, flip your little tail down there. You can either take your yarn and put it through that hole to secure it, or you could just hold it together or clip it. I use my hair clips for everything just to hold it, but you want this to be tight together. All right, let's see if we can get 9 out of that. Yeah, I'm gonna pull it over a little bit. So you don't want to cover your first stitch there. You're gonna knit through the top. All right, so now we're gonna, just like any other round, knit through the top. This is a little bit more of an advanced tutorial, so I'm going to assume that everybody knows this basic part here. If not, there's my how to make a hat tutorial that goes really, really slow on how to make this circle. Hats and scarf season's coming up quick. Summer is just flying by. Anybody that has kids knows that they can't stand that. It's like school's out and they got a 5-minute break and they're back at it. It's just not fair, but what are you gonna do? So knit through the top of each stitch. Okay, let me see how many I've got now. This is actually not my tail. I'm gonna have to, I thought this piece would be big enough to knit my 2 rows, so I'll just burn it together here. So, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I need 2 more. 8. And then I need to get the beginning of this stitch here that's hiding. 9. Because I'm a little short on yarn, I'm gonna burn some of my other skein in. I like to use up all my yarn. This is why I never have been able to make a scrap blanket, because I just always burn it together and keep going. So I have been trying to collect enough to make a scrap blanket for years, but I don't even have enough for a half a blanket because I just like to keep reusing my yarn. So here's the burn method. I'm going to go over it again. I try to go over it in every video if I'm going to use it. Most people light both ends, and if you can, it's even better. But let that burn for a minute. Get that plastic core going. Hold them together. Push it. Wait a little bit for it to cool off. You want to make sure you don't get that hard knot in the middle. Now you need to start squeezing and massaging it together so it will hold really well. Squeeze all the way around. Turn it sideways and push that knot together and flatten it out. Just keep massaging it while it's warm. It's just like a piece of wax in there, and you can form it. And if you don't like it, if it feels too sharp, and you're worried about that being in your blanket, which I've never noticed them, but some people just can't stand to know that there's a sharp piece in there, and they don't want it. So just pull it apart, cut it apart, and redo it until you get used to it. All right, let me see what mess I made here. I think my stitch came undone. All right. Let's make sure I've got 9 now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know why I keep saying 9. I'm so sorry. The first time I did this pattern, I actually did 9, and it was just a little too big and bulky. So, all right, we're gonna go around that circle one more time. Hopefully I didn't mess this up. I might have to start over. I didn't clip it very tight together right here, and I'm not liking how it's looking. You really want this center to be flat, so don't worry if you have to take this apart and do it again a couple more times, because we're actually going to close this up here right after we knit 2 rows. So you'll be able to see how flat it is. Like with a hat or anything else, you know, you don't close it up until you have, you know, gone around quite a bit. Yeah, let me see if that's going to work. Yeah, that should be good. All right, so we've got 2 all the way around, and this is where I clipped it together. This is why I used to always, when I would start out my circle, I would always put this end piece through there before I started, so from the inside out. But you end up doing it in the end anyway, but it's just kind of hard to hold it together. I just feel like this way I don't have as much of a bump in the middle, and it's really important when you're doing this pet bed. All right, from the inside out or outside in, whatever you prefer, but you need to get this one really tight so that you have no hole there, because this is going to be the center of your pet bed that I showed in the beginning of the video, and it's on the YouTube thumbnail. Alright, and just cinch as you go, just like you're closing up a hat or a plushie or anything that you make that's round. Okay. Now you do not have to do this color switching thing after 2 rows like that I'm doing. I think it looks really pretty. And if your circle doesn't get tight enough, just back this all back out and do it one more time, because it actually kind of flattens the yarn when you're doing this. But this one, I did really good. So go from the outside in. I think it's working better. Sorry, I pulled too hard and I'm pulling the ends of my yarn off. Trim that. I pulled it with my fingernails and broke it. Alright, so now we're going to tuck that in. This is going to be the center of our pet bed. And you can see there's no hole there, alright? And then you're going to flip it around. This is going to be the bottom. You're going to want to tie a knot here, because you know pets are going to dig at this. If it's a puppy or a dog, they like to sometimes dig in the middle of their beds. And they might pull that out. But this is going to be on the bottom. This is going to be what they would actually dig at. So it'll be safe. So close that up real good. These make great gifts. They really are wonderful. I keep doing that. Alright, I want that to be one big knot, so I'm trying to push it and slide it together instead of having 2 knots there. And then you can take and weave it through the end one of your stitches. And then I like to burn everything, so I'm gonna just keep rubbing that till I can feel that plastic core in the middle. Flatten it so that when I light it, I don't get a whole bunch of singed looks there. Just want to get that hot enough to where I can stick it to another piece, squeeze it. My fingers are nice and calloused from the years of burning. There, look at that. So again, that's on the bottom, but still now you won't be able to see it. Alrighty, so now we would just keep knitting around, but I want to switch colors so that this will look like a nice little flower in the middle. So I'm going to cut it just a little bit, a little length here, you know, just a little nubby. That's how long I cut that piece before I add on. Now we're done with that light color. Again, just partially optional. This skein, I already unrolled one over here in front of me, made a gigantic pile of dark purple yarn, which you can't see, but okay, so now I'm going to burn my 2 colors together. I like to trim off some of the fluff if it's extra fluffy, so that you get a nice flat piece there. We're going to burn these 2 colors together. I can't believe this lighter is still working. I've had it forever. Ever get that piece of yarn that just doesn't want to light sometimes? Push the 2 together. Give it a minute to adhere and to cool. You got your 2 colors together. Now start squeezing. You can put finger protectors on if you're afraid to burn yourself, or if you want to start squeezing sooner when it's really hot. Push it together, massage it. Just keep squeezing it from all different angles, and you'll feel it to where it flattens. Okay, so back over. So we just knitted 2 rows and changed our color. I've been writing this down. You want to kind of write this down as you go. Now we're going to knit through this row, and then after this we're going to start increasing, because if we just kept knitting in a circle, this would start to like cinch up like that, and we want it to lay flat. So we do 2 regular rows with this color and then change colors. So basically 3 regular rows without doing any increasing. If you want to increase right here, you can to make it even flatter. I'm just going to show you how I did mine. I'm not perfect. I don't care if you change my pattern. I just want to show you the basics. So I'm just knitting around in a circle, and then I'm going to flatten this out a little more because you can see it starting to poof up there from me tightening it. Okay, I knit it around once. Now I'm just going to keep stretching this out. Okay, so now see how far apart them stitches are? Right? It would be really, if you did it again, it's going to just keep, you know, and it's not going to lay flat. So now on this row, we are going to start increasing, and we're going to increase in between every stitch. So the way you increase is you find the strand that goes in between your stitches here. Okay, see that little strand? And then you're going to actually make a stitch there. You're going to pull it through. So now you've got another stitch. Okay, and then you're going to knit. So I'm going to put my stitch marker here so I know this was my first row. This was my increase row. And then I'm going to knit the one that was already there. Okay. You want to knit these kind of tight so that you have, you know, no holes showing through. Then I'm going to increase in between there. See, I added another stitch. The stitch was already there. Your increased stitches that you're doing here, you want to make them a little bigger so that they're as tall as what you're going to get here. So here, they're almost as tall as 2 stitches. See, I knitted another stitch there. I want them to be the same height, almost. Because if you just make your increased stitch this a real small one, then it's going to be uneven. It's kind of hard to explain. But so here's, I'm going to increase here. Another reason I did these 2 colors is that it makes it easier for you to see right now. So my increased stitch, do it kind of big, almost 2 fingers, and then just knit through the next stitch. So now my increased stitch and my regular stitch are the same size. And you're just going to have to keep playing with it as you go. If your other color starts showing through, just pull your stitch over there. Increase, big stitch. Knit through the next one. There you go. See here, my color is popping through that stitch. I don't like that. Just stick it back in and then pull up. Pull your yarn over if you need to. I just made that stitch too small. Yeah. Okay, we'll fix that. All right, knit an increase stitch. Okay, a big one. The stitch is already there. Knit through it. And then an increase. So every other row right now in the beginning here, you're going to increase. And then a regular. And then an increase. And I have this written down next to me and on my phone in notes so that I wouldn't forget how I did it. I've actually only made one of these, 2 of these actually. And I did it different both times. An increase, and a knit through, and then this was my first increase stitch here. So I had already increased that row. All right, so this here starts a new row. I'm going to put a clip there just for a minute. Okay, so your increase stitches on here now will only have 1 stitch on them, but as you can see all the way around, everything's about, you know, the same height. And that's what we want. Okay, so the next row, we're just going to knit through all the way around. All right. I'm going to put a stitch marker there so I know where I left off. You really need something to mark it the first time you're doing this. Now we're just going to knit through every stitch that we have. Our increase stitches. Isn't that looking pretty already? I love these colors together. You can use any loop yarn you want on the end here to make the fluffy border that I'm going to do, but you don't have to do it at all. You could even use regular yarn In fact, I think I'm going to start off just showing you in the beginning how to do it with regular yarn, because it's kind of hard to see when you're using loop yarn what I'm actually doing anyways. Okay. This one ends up being, let's see, 9 rows all the way around total. And I'm going to do the whole bed with you. That's important. And the whole oval rug. The oval rug is just going to be, we're going to get to the end of the circle and you would cast off, which we're going to do for the pet bed too, but you would just stop there and make it a rug. And if you want to make it a pet bed, you just keep going. All right, so we've got 2 stitches through all these purple ones. Now we're on to an increase row again. And I've got it written down. Next row, okay, number 4. Now we're going to increase every other stitch. We're not going to go in between every stitch, because if we keep doing that, it's just going to get wonky and wide and all that. So I'm going to increase. And this is my first increase. I want to make it kind of a little bigger than that. You want it taller than the stitch next to it because you're going to knit through that one. Sorry, there's a hair there. So I'm going to increase. It's a little bit bigger than the one next to it. Okay. I'm going to put my marker there. And what I mean by every other is instead of knitting one and then putting another increase, we're going to knit 2 and then increase, then knit 2, then increase. My verbiage might not be the way you would say it. So knit 2, increase. Need to squeeze another stitch in there, make it a little taller than the one next to it. Knit 2, increase. Make it a little taller. Knit 2. Increase. Knit 2. Increase. Bigger stitch, almost 2 fingers on your increase one. 1 finger on your others. Knit 2. I didn't leave this yarn out very long at all to fluff up on this other skein, and it's a little flattened, but that's okay. Increase. Maybe a little bigger than 1 finger hole on these because mine are just a little too tight. But, okay, so increase, knit 1, knit 2. Sorry, I'm constantly picking off cat hair. I have a very, very fluffy cat. I know I've said that before, but her hair is insane. She's Himalayan and Persian, and she's white and gray, and it's just everywhere. Bolting through my house. Knit 2. That was an increase stitch there. You can tell when you get kind of close, they look different because they'll dip down. And when you use 2 different colors of yarn, when you're, I'm sorry, I got to increase here. If you're like wanting to switch colors every other row or every couple of rows, like maybe you wanted to add more purple, you don't want to do it on an increase row, okay? Because then you'll see this jaggedness. You can't see it on my pet bed at all right now. You can't see where these increase stitches are. But if you're switching colors, you'll be able to see it. All right, so here's knit 2. So if you're gonna, like if you wanted to change colors, now would be the time, because your next row you're only going to knit stitch. You're not going to do any increasing, so it'll look good. If you switch colors on an increase row, it's going to look a little jagged, which is fine if it's just a pet bed. I mean, but some people just don't want that. All right, so now we're on to our next row, and we're just going to knit through it. So here's our first stitch. And these will all be the same size, just about. Actually, that's a little too big. Okay. I was thinking I was doing a knit through. Just a little bigger than one finger on these. This purple dusk, if you're wondering, is like almost a dusty purple almost. Very similar to another brand of yarn. It starts with the B and ends with a T. And they have a purple, a dark purple like this, and it's really close to it. I have them both. I strive to be like them. I love their yarn. It's always been my favorite. Top quality. Maybe they'll hire me. There we go. Knit all the way around. Probably speed this up. This is, I meant to tell you in the beginning, this is going to be a long tutorial, but there's a lot of steps, so I have to stay with you through the whole thing. I can't fast forward it to the end and cast off like I do with a blanket, because things change constantly on this one. And, you know, like with the blanket, you can knit a bunch of rows the same exact way. And you can't do that with this. You gotta increase and not increase, increase, not increase. Oh, this is gonna take about a skein and a half, I believe is what I forgot to write it down. I'm sorry. I'll know by the end of this when I'm recording, and I'll tack it into the notes how much I used. Hopefully I can remember, but you'll see as we go through how much I've used. And then the loop yarn that I added, again, is optional. All right, so now we're on to, let me mark off my thing here. We did increase every other last time, so this time we're going to increase, or actually, I'm sorry, I did one knit through row. Now we want to actually, we're going to start knitting. We're going to knit through 2 rows now, because we're getting bigger and we really don't want to grow too fast. So I'm sorry, we're going to knit through 2 rows now. I call this row number 6, but it's up to you where you want to start counting. I started counting after this. So this to me is row 6, and it looks different because there's the increase rows that's kind of hard to count. So now we're going to actually knit through 2 rows, because we just don't need to get much bigger this faster. We are going to increase again, but not until the next row. You'll kind of get a feel for it if you get done doing a row and you see that, wow, my stitches are still really close together, then I don't need to really increase. I can knit through another row without it trying to pull up so hard. You know, it's still laying pretty flat for me. As you can see, this piece will always kind of poke up a little just because of the way it's made, but once the pet starts laying on it, it'll flatten down. Chunky yarn stretches. So you can see, you know, here these stitches are still pretty close together. I just didn't feel I need to increase again quite yet. I do want it to get bigger, but I can get by with one more row before I need to increase again. As you get bigger, you'll be able to do that. I mean, you kind of do the same thing with the other pet bed tutorial. When you do the single crochet stitch, you have to increase there by knitting through each stitch twice. Some people are actually talented enough to get 3 stitches to the top of one of those single crochet stitches. My wrists won't let me do that. Well, we're gonna get too big to be on screen here pretty soon, which I don't like. I just have yet to find the perfect camera stand. This one is up over me, so it's like shining down on my hands. It's over my shoulder and on my hands. So this is my right, just so you know. You'll always see my ring that I've never taken off, and since my daughter was born 14 years ago when I got it. And I was going to get a tattoo, but I just promised myself that was something I would never do in life. Plus, I'm a big chicken, so this is my tattoo. If the ring ever breaks, I suppose I'll have to get one to go there that has her name. Alright, so we knitted through 2 rows. I'm going to knit through this one. Now we're going to increase again. But we don't need to increase too much, so we're going to increase every 3 stitches. So knit through here and do an increase. It gets a little harder to pull them through. You just got to wiggle it, make it a little bigger than the stitch next to it, and then knit 3. Two, 3, and then we'll throw in another stitch. This is an increase, and then knit 3, just pull it from the back, 1, just keep laying that down, 2, 3, there we go. That was an increase, sorry. Knit 1, knit 2, knit 3, increase, make it a big one, knit 1, knit 2, keep flattening out your stitches. Knit 3, increase. If you forget, like, oh man, how many stitches did I do after I increased? I forget a lot. Just look back through it and you'll see. It's probably hard with this dark yarn, but it comes down a little lower. The increase stitch does. You look like a V almost right there. So I know this was my increase stitch. It looks a little different. Okay, so knit 1, and I'll know that I need to knit 3 after that. Knit 2, knit 3. That was a little too big, so I'll just pull back on it. Knit 1. Knit, okay, I'm sorry, increase. This was my increase stitch. Knit 1, 2, 3, increase. Now we're going to do that again. Knit 1, 2, 3, and just turn it as you go. Increase. Make it a little bigger. Do the next stitch. Knit 1, knit 2. Should have let my yarn fluff up longer. I just came out of the compression thing, but I know that it will fluff up as it's sitting here. Okay, so there's my increase. You can tell it'll start. It always tries to turn sideways on you. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna have enough to increase one more time. Actually, that was an increase, sorry. See, I get to talking and then I mess up. Knit 1, knit 2, knit 3. The math won't always come out right to where you'll get, you know, your 3 stitches in before you hit the end. So that was stitch 3. This was my last one. I could increase right there, but I already have one right here that's only 1 stitch over, so I'm not going to. So now we did, I'm going to cross it off. We did every other or I'm sorry, we knitted, increased every 3 stitches. Now we're going to do 2 more rows and then we're going to cast off. So we don't need to increase anymore. So the next rows, I call them 8 and 9. We're going to knit through. Okay. We're going to knit through one. This, see, this you can tell is your increased stitch. It gets kind of twisted sideways. Make sure you flatten it out before you knit through it. Okay. And knit a small stitch through it. So we're going to go around one time with the knit stitch here. And then the last one, normally you would make your last row of anything kind of big because you're casting off. So this is what I want you to remember. If you're going to use this tutorial as an oval rug, your last row before you cast off, you need to make your stitches big, just like you would for a blanket, so that you have room to cast off and it doesn't curl up. You want it, if it's a rug, you want it to lay super flat. Now, since this is mainly a pet bed tutorial, when I get to my next row, I'm going to cast off kind of tight, because I actually want this edge to curl up because I'm going to make sidewalls. I sure hope my phone doesn't run out of memory. I'm going to have to make a two-parter on this one. Alright. Just knit through every stitch all the way around till you get to your stitch marker. Okay, so I've hit my stitch marker, which means I'm going to do one more row. Now again, this is the last row before we start building sidewalls. If you're making an oval rug, this last row, I want you to make your stitches a lot bigger, like twice the size of what you normally do. Make them like 3 fingers big, where you can fit 3 fingers through the hole if you're going to make an oval rug, so that when you cast off, you can just, you know, it won't curl up and make your sides all wonky. Sorry, lost my train of thought there for a minute. So to cast off, I'm gonna just kind of pretend that I'm casting off here for you. Let's pretend this was an oval rug, okay? And I did make giant stitches, okay? So I'm just, it's exactly like you would cast off for a blanket. You're just going to take your, I'm going to knit through, I need to get past this little stitch marker here because I'm going to back this out for the pet bed. So again, this is for the oval rug. These stitches would be really big. You would just do it exactly like you do when you're casting off for a blanket. You take 2 stitches, hold them together, bring the yarn around behind it, push it through the hole of the 2 stitches, pull out another stitch, okay? Bring it over top of these 2, grab another stitch, hold them together, okay? Grab your yarn, pull it through, just like you would for a blanket, all the way around. Again, this is for, I gotta add more yarn, sorry. This is for an oval rug. So don't confuse this. If you're doing the pet bed, just ignore this part. It's a combo tutorial. Let me just burn on some more yarn here. So that skein that I was using was not a full skein. So I really haven't used, well, actually probably I have, if you count this centerpiece, I've used about a full skein of yarn already. So you're going to need about 1.5, depending on if you want to make this even bigger. Okay, sorry, I had to stop and burn some together there. And with this being a rug or a pet bed, you want to make sure your burns adhere if you're going to be walking on it or a pet's going to be crawling on it. Just keep massaging and squeezing it together. Make sure the strings that are inside the yarn have completely come together. See, that one, I pulled as hard as I could and it popped apart. So really give it a good pull. Then you don't have your blankets coming apart. I could tell just when I burned it that it wasn't going to adhere good, but I wanted to show you guys what I do to make sure that my burns never come apart. Big flame so that this is really melted. Push that together. I could just feel it just now, like almost stick together better. Sometimes you just can't get right to the plastic core. There's too much yarn. Like this part, this skein right here, I can see it's really tightly knitted. And sometimes it just makes it hard to adhere when you've got yarn that's really tightly knitted. And if you just let it cool longer too. All right, there. It's not coming out right. Okay, let's continue casting off as if we would for an oval rug. So again, you're going to take your last stitch that you just made from the pull through, overlap, bring your yarn behind it, pull it through those 2 stitches just like you would for a blanket. I know I've said that 5 times, I'm sorry. All right, go to your next stitch, grab the one that you just made that's sticking up, pull it over top of it, grab your working yarn from behind, push it through the hole of both of them. Pull through, make it a big pull through, okay? Go through, pull. Okay, so you're just going to do that all the way around, and that's would be the end of it for an oval rug. You would just go all the way around, and then you can just fold this back, and then your braided border is on the side. It's going to fall back anyways, but your rug would look like that, and then you'd have a nice flower in the middle of it. And at the end, just like you would for a blanket, burn the 2 edges together when you cut it off, lace it through the sides, however you do your blankets. All right, so I'm going to undo this. Now we're going to get back to the pet bed tutorial. So I needed to knit 1 more row, I believe is where I left off there. And I was just showing you how to cast off. So I want it a little bigger than this. I'm going to knit through 1 more row for my pet bed, and my last row is just going to be normal size stitches because it's not a rug. I'm going to fold this in half here for a minute because it's falling off and I want to stay on camera. All right, so let's get through our last row. Knit through as fast as I can. Okay, gotta unwind some more yarn here. Take off some. If you guys would be interested in a video on how I wind up my yarn, because when it comes compressed, I get it compressed too. You got to take it out of the package and unwind it and let it sit for a few hours. I let mine sit overnight and it gets nice and fluffy. I mean, look at how fluffy that got. And I didn't have to use a whisk or anything, or tool or anything like that. Sometimes if I see some flat spots, I'll run my whisk through it. But I let it sit for a while to fluff it up. But if you're interested in a video on how I shape it back into this beautiful football, I like the football because I feel like I can fit more in my storage containers that I have downstairs. I use those cubicle like ones, and I can fit more when it's shaped like a football than when you do it as a round ball. Excuse me. Alarm's going off on my phone. So if you're interested in a video, I'm so sorry I trailed off again. Interested in a video on how I do that to get it to that shape, so that after your yarn is done decompressing, if you want to roll it back up and store it that way, I can show you how to do it. I personally like it that way, but I only keep a few of each skein out just so I know what colors I have when I'm looking to make a blanket. But I keep mine in the vacuum seal packs so that I can store 10 times more yarn in my little cubicle thingy, because they're nice and flat. So if you've ever ordered my yarn, you see that it comes in a about 2-inch thick pack. It's about that big, you know, the width of 2 balls of yarn. I think it's 10 by 8, and then only 2 inches thick. So you can stack like 12 of them, I think I fit once in my cubicle thing. Whereas if I make it into the football shape, I can only fit about 6 of them. So it's up to you. And if you're storing them in a box or something, you can fit so many of those vacuum sealed packs. Because you're going to want to stock up on the next round of colors that I've got coming for fall. I'm so excited. I just love this. I'm so blessed every day. I tell myself that I get to do this for a living because it's my favorite thing in the world. I've been obsessed with chunky yarn since the moment I've seen it, and now I get to have my own business and I get to do tutorials and teach people and help people all day long, and it's just the biggest blessing ever. Okay, so we are finished with all of our rows. Now we want to start building our sides. Wouldn't this make a beautiful rug, especially if you did the finished edge in this color too? It'd be lovely. All right, so we're going to cast off. Let me check my notes here. I wanted to cast off for a pet bed. We want to do our cast off rows really tight so that it does curl up, okay? And you don't have to like seal your end. You're just going to continue on to your border. So we're going to cast off actually the same way that we just did before for the rug, but we're going to cast off tight. We want it to curl up, so we're not going to make this really big so that it crosses way over. I want it to stand up and stay standing up. So if you do your cast off here kind of tight, don't make this loop here really big. It just makes it a little easier to curl up. Pull it through the same way. Sorry, it's falling off. It got so big. Oh, I was going to measure it for you. After you did all those rows, I have my ugly tape measure, excuse me. I couldn't find my seamstress tape. We are at exactly 20 inches width. And, well, you know, all the way around would be 20 inches. So this is about how big your pet bed would be, because now we're just going to build up sides. All right, where was I? Where are I? All right, so cast off really tight so that it curls up a little for you. I'll show you the side view. See how I'm only making that stitch about barely 2 fingers big. Pull it nice and tight. See, it's already curling up on the side there for me. That's what you want. I'm sure other people do it differently. I just accidentally did it this way the first time. I'm like, oh, I'm going to leave it that way because it's already building my sidewall for me. You don't want to go so tight that it starts caving in completely. You just have to kind of get a feel for it and maybe go back through it. Don't worry about taking stuff apart. That is how we learn. I mean, I'm still learning. I learned how to do this just the other day. Practice makes perfect, and I love to experiment. I love a challenge. When somebody says, hey, can you look at this and try to make it? Psh, sure. Sometimes it takes me 4 straight days and I can't sleep until it's done, but I get because I just have to figure it out. That's just how I am. It'll drive me nuts. All right, you see how that's curling up real nice for us on the side? It's going to make it a lot easier to build our sidewalls. So it might make it actually a little smaller than 20 inches because we're kind of pulling up the last row. I don't normally knit this slow, just so you guys know. It's actually killing me to do this. I'm trying to go slow for you so that you can actually see what I'm doing here. And I painted my nails nice and bright so you could see where my fingertips were. Alright, pulling out some of my stitches over here. Make sure that that doesn't happen, that they don't pop out before you get them closed up. If you feel like it's getting too tight and curling in too much, just loosen up a couple of your next stitches. You could do even like do 2 tight ones and 2 loose ones. Just kind of figure it out as you go. But isn't this great? You don't have to start off with that single crochet stitch. I've had a lot of people tell me that they want to make pet beds so bad and they just couldn't figure it out. And they could not figure out how to get started with a single crochet stitch. And I knew if I was sitting next to them, I could show them. I had to learn from a tutorial too, and it took me a long time. So I just had to figure out a way to do it. I just said, I'm going to figure out a way. And by like the same amount of time I was actually coming up with a tutorial for it, 2 people in my group posted, one back to back. One lady posted an oval rug, and I was like, oh my goodness, she's thinking the same thing as me. And then Catherine posted her pet beds. I'm like, wow. And she did it the same way. So we were all thinking, we're going to help these people that hate the single crochet stitch or just can't get it, you know. Some of us just don't want to do it. It's hard. It's hard on the hands, but it looks really nice. So yeah, I'm not anti-crochet stitch at all. See, I'm making a couple of them bigger. These are 2 fingers because I felt like it was curling up too much and starting to like bow in. I didn't like that. It takes a little while to get around a gigantic circle here. You could make a sun. You could do the middle of this yellow and just keep it going out a little farther, and then maybe, I don't know, somehow color switch yellow and white on the side. There's a lady in our group asking how to do that the other day. I showed her my sunflower pillow that I made, and I'm going to show her this to kind of help her get through that. If there's ever something you need to make and it's really important and you're wanting to make it for a gift for a loved one or something, or an order that you really need the money, just get in my Facebook group and message me and I will help you. I don't care if we got to do a Zoom meeting or whatever it takes. I'll help you figure it out. I'll figure it out first and then I'll teach you how to do it. As long as it's not during Prime Days. Amazon had Prime Days the other day and it was so busy for me. It was my first year doing it. So, and I'm hoping the fall is just as busy. Busy is a blessing. It's hard, but it's a blessing. Busy means sales. I need more sales so I can buy more yarn. All I want to do is just fill my store with 100 colors so we can have every color we need for every job there is. Alright, so I'm almost to my last stitch. Normally you would cast off if this was a rug, but since I'm going to build walls, I'm just going to keep going. Alright, so we've got to this last stitch here. I'm actually going to pull in another stitch through here so that I can reach over further. Right. Okay, so normally you would cast off right here, but I'm just going to keep going on top of this all the way around, just like you're casting off a blanket, and then it will make the sides. See, it's already starting to curl up a little bit, so just keep going, and then it will build up. And you want to roll this up, okay, and make sure now that you're knitting through your top of your stitches. So this first one is a little tight. So this is the top, so unfold it, okay, and see your braided border? This is what I mean. You want to knit through both of these. Okay, so grab this first stitch here. Kind of wish I would have used a lighter yarn now, alright? Grab a hold of the top and the bottom part of it. Grab your working yarn, push it through. The first one's kind of hard because it's tighter. Alright, get you a stitch there. Again, it's just like casting off. Bring the two together. Bring your working yarn around. Pull through. Grab your next stitch on top of it. Hope my camera doesn't run out of space. And knit through again. And it's building up a wall for you. Okay. So grab two stitches. It's just like you're going to just keep casting off and casting off and casting off. But you're going to go on top now. Alright, pull through. And it's building up a wall on the side. Look how thick that is already. I wish you could see it from a better angle. When I get going around, I'll measure the height for you of the sides. Okay, grab your next stitch. Again, the top of the next stitch. Both pieces. Grab a hold of it and pull some yarn through the hole underneath it. Like that. So that you get another stitch. And you're going to grab these two stitches. Put them together. Grab your working yarn, pull it around, push it through those two stitches and pull out a loop. Alright? These you will make a little bigger. You don't want them super tight because you don't want it to curl in too much. Catherine makes hers so wonderful. They're like a saucer. I'll have to come to the group and ask me for a picture of it, and I'll tag you in hers that she did. She even did a little short video on for us on how to use the loop yarn on the side. I'm going to add it to this one and show you again. It's best if you unwind your skeins before you start. Okay. So this is how to add your border with. You can keep going like this and don't have to add the loop yarn, but I'm also going to add an additional loop yarn border on the top of mine. Alright, and just keep going through. You can go around as many times as you want on this till your walls get as tall as you feel that you want them. They got to be big enough to, you know, kind of curl around the pet. Just think of, you know, a pet bed that you see in the pet store. They're usually, you know, about 5 inches tall on the side. But I know my cat likes hers to be bigger than that, taller, and she wants to curl in it and have it come all the way around her. And if you're going to sell them, just come up with a standard way and a standard height. Grab your next stitch, pull some yarn through it, get yourself a loop, put the two together, just keep casting off on top of your rows. Through. I was going to mark where I started. Sorry. Let me go back and do that right now because I'll forget later. Here we go. That was my first cast off, and there was my first stitch there. Just so I know how many times I've gone around. Alright. So this is add a border to a blanket, but make it a pet bed. You may need, depending on how tall you want your sides, you actually may need a little more than 2 skeins. I would get 3 skeins to be safe. And if you're making a bigger pet bed for a, you know, a gigantic dog, you're going to, you know, need 6. You're going to want to double this. And you're going to want to increase more. This must have been my first stitch here because it's real tight again. If you can't get through one of them, don't worry about skipping over to the next one. Just reach across it. Yeah, I don't like how that one came out. Sorry. I made that stitch nice and loose on accident, and it worked out good because now I'm going to skip this super tight one because I don't like the way it's coming out. knit 3. So if this is all you want to do and you don't want to use a loop yarn, you can go ahead and just turn off the video here, because all I'm going to do is keep going around in circles. Or you can skip to the end to see, you know, I finish it off the same way I do a blanket. I just take my tail and weave it through and then burn it to the side or the inside. But we're going to go 3 rows around. It's going to be one of my longest tutorials yet. And make sure that's right. Sometimes I accidentally grab the wrong part of the stitch, so I go back through and I check it. Did I make sure I went through the top of the stitch and not through the side? Because then it'll look weird. We don't want weird, do we? Unroll my rest of my yarn here. Give me just a minute. So get yourself 2 or 3 skeins, depending on how big you want. Unroll it and let it fluff. Unless you're using another brand of yarn that doesn't come compressed or whatever, you know, you don't need to do that with every brand. You can just have them sitting there. I don't know why you'd want to use any other brand than mine, because mine's the best, so I'm just kidding. I still have to admit, I still use some of the B yarn that ends with the T. I don't know if I'm allowed to say their names, and the one from the craft stores. I love those. Those are what I started out with. Alright, keep going through. Trying to do this faster, but I would do like a tight stitch and then a loose stitch, and then I think it gives it just enough to where it curls around good and your sides don't flop. This is actually a pretty big sized pet bed. If you're making for a little Chihuahua or something, he probably would want it to be smaller, or a little Yorkie. Or, like I said, a cat. I tried to do, there was a lady in my group that actually did a hooded pet bed, and it is so wonderful for cats. And I think I still have the video in the Chunky Yarn Blanketeers group. It was really neat. I try to get group members to do tutorials also, because, I mean, I don't know everything. I don't even pretend to know everything. And there's some very talented people in there that come up with some wonderful, wonderful ideas. There's a lady named Arena that just two things, patterns she just created today out of the blue. Just off the top of her head. Just wonderful, wonderful things that I never would have thought of. She's got years and years of experience, she said. Love having her there. I learn a lot from her. Love my community. Alright, I'm not going to just keep explaining it over and over again, because you guys are probably sick of hearing me say it, but this is, you know, again, just like doing a casting off. Pull a stitch through the top. But just make sure you're getting your top of your stitch, and you're not accidentally knitting through your pet bed, because it will not look right. It won't stand upright for you. It's the main point of this, is you don't want it to cave in or flop down. You want it to have sides like a real pet bed. Pretty hard to do with chunky yarn. Okay. Just make sure you're knitting on the top, and then you get, see, you can see inside there that I'm already building a wall. It's almost to this end of this row. Alright, and I got to my last stitch, And I'm just going to keep going because I want one more row at least to make this taller. I'm almost out of my purple yarn. I hope I have enough. You can also, if you're doing it for a dog or cat, well, I guess for a dog, some of the openings of a pet bed will dip down in the front. You can just do, you know, one row around, and then on your second row, leave a gap about that far. And then that way it will look lower a little bit on the side there. And there is a way to actually just knit back and forth, you know, and stop and leave a gap like right there, so it's only this, you know, about that high for the front for them to step in, and then around the sides you would have, you know, big tall sides. See how it's kind of curling in a little bit, just enough. I mean, you can flatten it out some more. It's kind of hard to get these just right, but with practice you'll get them to where they stand up really good. And you can always just keep stretching it out too. But I'm going to do one more wall. Okay, I'm going to pause the camera and go around one more time exactly like I did, and then I'm going to show you how to add the loopy yarn. Okay, I'm back. I did run one more, circle around one more time so that we've got two nice rows here. They actually pretty much are the single crochet stitch. So I kind of fooled you. I just wanted people to know that there is a way to make one without starting out with a single crochet stitch. And when you do the add a border to a blanket, you basically are doing the single crochet stitch. So this is what the sides end up looking like. It's very, very pretty. And mine is about probably 4 inches tall right now with just adding 2 rows. So you could even add one more. And I did notice, again, I've only made a couple of them this way. I've always done the single crochet stitch. My first row around, it felt flimsy and it was just falling in. I was getting a little worried. When I added the second row, it's already standing up very well on its own. If you added a third row, I think it would stand up even taller. But for time's sake, I'm not going to add another row that big. And again, it depends on the size of the dog. You got a little dog, you don't want them to have to climb up and over, you know, 8 inches of sidewall to get in. So this is where I ended up, and this is what it looks like from the side. So now we're going to finish it off, and I'm just going to cut my yarn and leave about 5-6 inches there. Okay, and we're just going to make one more pull through. I probably should have made that longer. I always do that. Actually, you don't have to pull all of it through. So just take your working yarn, because I'm not going to make another loop, sorry. Pull that through your side like you were doing your another loop. Take the end of it, pull it through this last loop that you've got, right? And now it's laid down. And then start weaving it through the sides. Even if you're going to burn it, I want you to weave it through the side a couple of times and pull it tight so that it blends together, okay? So even if you're going to burn it, and actually it's better if you do it on the inside of the stitch so that you can hide it better. Pull that through. Actually, I'm sorry. Oh, I just want it to look perfect. So pull it from the outside and from both pieces, and then it looks even better. Okay, so again, I'm going to do that for you one more time. This was my last stitch. I cut my yarn, make it at least 6 inches long. I'm going to take it and pull it through the hole underneath that stitch, through both top and bottom. Pull it through the side, grab it, bring it through my loop, up and over, and then I'm going to come down here again and pull it through the side. You can do this any way you want, okay? But that way made it look flawless, I felt like, okay? And then on the inside, I'm going to weave it through again because I've got extra and I want it to be really secure there. And then when I get to where it's too short to weave it through again, I'm going to burn it because we love burning. But this way, even if for some reason your burn wasn't secure, it's wrapped through 3 times. 3 stitches at least. I mean, you can do a long tail and weave it through a lot of times. That way it would never come undone. You can tie a knot if you hate burning. Nothing wrong with tying a knot. Just don't do it on blankets. Please don't do it on blankets. I'm sorry. I don't care what people say. I've had too many blankets come apart. Owie. So I just burn that right to the side of a stitch. You don't need an end piece. You can, the string is there. So you can just burn it to the side of the stitch and then it's flawless. All right, we've got our sides. Now if you don't want to do the frilly loopy yarn like I did, I'm going to show you. You can be done. And if you want to make it even more colorful, you could have used a lighter color yarn for your last 2 rows that you cast off. So, I mean, if I wasn't using loop yarn on the sides right now, I would definitely have made my sides a different color just so it's more colorful. But I love the little flower on the inside. Isn't that nice? Okay, so now with your loop yarn, you're going to do the same motion that you did when you were doing these sidewalls, okay, like the casting off. And you can start it wherever you want it. Top of the stitch, grab your loop yarn, pull it through, leave yourself a nice long tail there. Okay, let's see if I can remember how to do this. And then you're going to pull a loop through here. Okay, so you need 2 loops. And then you're going to pull another loop. Just pretend these loops aren't even there and that this is chunky yarn, okay? And you're going to pull another strand of it through there. All right, now you've got 2 coming through. Keep your fingers inside the holes of it. Okay, just pretend this is chunky yarn. Grab a strand of this, bring it around, pull it through. Pull it out the side, make yourself another loop. And this just makes it look more decorative. Top of the stitch, just like you did with you when you were doing this. Pretend you're doing the same thing, because you are. Pull it through. It just gets a little messier with the loop yarn. Combine the 2 stitches. Make them a little bigger than you did before. This, oh, I don't know if I showed you, this is, I always go to Hobby Lobby and look for the loop yarn that's on clearance and match it to my pet beds. This was on clearance for $2.99. Killer deal. This is, what brand is this? Off the Hook, I think. Yeah, this is Lion Brand Off the Hook. I like this one because you get a lot more yardage, I feel like. Alright, so again, don't let go of that loop because you'll never find it again with the loop yarn. Pull another chunk of it through your top of your stitch here, and just keep doing this all around and you'll have a nice frilly border. Can't remember how much it took. I'm thinking it took more than 1 skein of the loop yarn to do this, so have plenty of it on hand. Again, from the side, top of your grab your stitch top and grab some loop yarn and pull it through underneath just like you did before. Pull it out to where you've got a loop that you can fit your finger through. Combine your 2 loops, bring your working yarn over, pull it through. Just keep doing that all the way around, and you're going to get this beautiful border. There's so many color combinations you can come up with. I was going to do a gray pet bed with this black and gray and burgundy loop yarn that I found, but I haven't released that color in my store yet, so I didn't want to show you my gray yarn until I get it ready to go. Pull through, just don't let go of that piece. Keep your finger in there, grab your another stitch, pull it through. Make them kind of big so that it'll be super fluffy. Get your fingers through there. Pull up this stitch to where you can fit 3 fingers through it. Don't let go. Grab the top of the next stitch. Could probably do even every other stitch so that you could save yarn. Just depends on how thick you want your loop yarn sidewall to be. Through, turn, pull a stitch through. I know it looks confusing because of all this loopy stuff, but just pretend this is a strand of chunky yarn. You can do this on blankets. Catherine will do this like in the middle of a row of a blanket. She did a white one, and she found some rainbow loop yarn. It was gorgeous. I called it the unicorn blanket. Everybody went nuts over it. See, I even got a little mixed up there. let go. This was the closest I could find to match this pet bed, but I like it. Sometimes it gets stuck, just give it a little yank. And then I just tie it together when I get all the way around to the end. I cut it off and tie it together. I'm gonna charge at least 40 bucks for this pet bed. If I can get anybody to buy it. I don't sell a lot of blankets and stuff anymore because I'm all about the yarn store, but whenever I make stuff like this for tutorials, I don't want it just sitting around the house, so I'll put it on the marketplace usually. Excited to see how fast these sell because I might actually do some for some Christmas money. But hopefully my Amazon yarn store is going to be so busy with customers that I won't need to. Look how pretty that looks. I love it. Okay, so just keep going all around. I don't think you can burn this yarn. I don't think it has a plastic core. So you're going to need to tie it together in the end. And I'm definitely going to need to open my other skein of this. And if this is too confusing, you can just take this stuff and just weave it in and out of the sides. I'll show you. Here, I'm going to leave that up. You could take a strand of this and just stick it through and just kind of go in and out. Whatever you can do to get it connected. Now, some people might say that their pets won't like this, or they're afraid. Like my cat, she'd go bonkers with this. She plays with it, but I watch her. She doesn't try to eat it or anything. She just loves to smack it and claw at it. Or you might be afraid a dog might chew on it or something. So just offer both ways. If you're selling these, just tell people you can make it with or without the loopy yarn on the side. Most people want it just because it's so pretty. And you could always just cut it right off if they just change their mind. Again, look for the stuff on clearance. When the seasons change, like this is the summer colors, they're getting rid of it. And they're bringing in their winter colors, fall colors. This kind of helps the pet bed stand up a little more on the sides too. A smaller pet bed than this is going to definitely stand up more on the sides. When you get them really wide like this, you have to make them pretty tall, I feel, to get the sides to stand up. Alright, I only have that little strand left, so I'm going to grab another one and I'm going to tie it together because I still am only about halfway around my pet bed. I've still got all this to do. So yeah, definitely get 2 skeins. This stuff can be kind of twisted sometimes. Alright. So with loop yarn, you find my scissors. These little loops right here, you can cut. Just snip right in the middle of them, and then you'll have a strand. I'll show you. So right here in the middle, there's like a little connector, and then you'll have a strand. There you go. That's how they start off blankets. Okay. That one had a longer piece. So now we can tie this together. Get it nice and tight there. I love using loop yarn for accent, for pillows and things. Tie it twice, cut off my ends, and then I just leave it because you're not going to really see it. It's going to be done here. Alright, so I'll put a clip in my last stitch there so I wouldn't lose my finger hole. Just keep pulling through. Again, this is hard to see what I'm doing on camera, but you just have to do the same motion as you did with the chunky yarn. And again, imagine this on the edge of your oval blanket. So if you stop to cast it off your oval blanket, oval rug, I'm blanket crazy today, and put this on the edge over your oval rug. Imagine how pretty that would be. I will try to do one of those too. I'm going to see if I have enough left, because I have another pet bed like this that I made without what did I do to the other? All the other one's solid purple, and I didn't put any flower in the center, so I could make it, unstitch it and make it an oval rug, but I don't think I would have enough yarn of this color. I don't have another skein. That's too bad, because that would make a very pretty rug to have this for the edges. It gets a little tangled sometimes when you're pulling it through. Almost done. I'm going to be adding loop yarn to my store next year, hopefully. I want to start getting into making the loop yarn blankets, because for baby blankets, I just love how they look. Tighter, neater stitching, safer for babies. Pulling loops up, pulling a loop through the two loops. We're getting there, just a few more. So yeah, I hope everybody has enjoyed this tutorial and that you are finally going to be confident enough to make pet beds and oval rugs with beautiful loop yarn, or without, however you feel you want to do it. You could even just use a different color chunky yarn for your edging. My rainbow yarn would look so good as a edge on a bright colored pet bed. Alright, so I've got one more stitch hiding in here that I want to cover. And I can tell that this loop will go over it and connect to this one. So I'm pretty sure that's going to work. I'll keep my finger in there. Never want to lose your hole there. Excuse my mess. Trying to cut myself. I'm going to cut me off a nice long tail of chunky yarn, or loop yarn here. And cut. I did that with one hand. Check me out. Alright, so for my last one, I'm going to just pull, do my last stitch, my loop yarn, if I can get the stitch up. Let's see. I've got one through there. It gets confusing here at the end. One through there, but we make it work. And just like I did before, I'm going to take a strand, pull it through, right, so that it comes down, come back inside here, see if I can weave it through, and then connect these two ends. Alright, just want to make sure that you've hidden all your chunky yarn inside there. And then this stuff here is all frilly. I'm going to just try to tie it off and trim it. Tie that together really tight. I didn't even like snip the edges this time because I wasn't connecting two pieces. So you don't have to worry about this loop yarn coming apart, let me tell you. Alright, so I just tied it together in a knot there. We can give it another tie just to... Actually, no, I'm not going to tie it again because there's no way it's coming apart. And if I tie it again, it's going to leave a big bulky spot. But I am going to go through the stitch one more time on the side next to it just because I'm going to be picky. There we go. And, yeah, I don't have room on that stitch to go through. Alright, and then you just snip off your little pieces again to get it to open up so that you've got a strand. Cut that off. Open up your yarn. So you'll just cut right in between the loop right there, and then it'll come loose. Alright, now I've got my strands. I'm just making sure this loop yarn is really secure here. Tie it off. Try to tuck it in. Just keep weaving everything through so this looks nice and safe for you. Cut those little edges off and tuck it in. Alright, I sure wish I could show you from the very top, but I'm going to post pictures. Well, look how beautiful that is. So I can raise up my camera a little more. Okay, and it's standing up. Look at that. Look at the sides. And again, you'll see the picture on the intro. And you have one beautiful pet bed. Definitely going to be investing in a better camera stand for our holder for my next tutorial, because I'm really getting mad that when I make big things like this for you guys, you can't see the whole thing. Here, let me try to zoom out. See if I can mess this up some more. Yeah, I have my limits with this camera stand. Sorry, guys. And I'm using the forward facing motion, so I can't even zoom out anymore. Well, I will post lots of pictures, and I still hope you enjoyed this and that it was easy enough for you. And if you have any questions, again, come to the group, like, subscribe, comment, so you'll get notifications whenever I post new tutorials. And there's always discounts going on and sales for my yarn store that I post in the Facebook group. And all my announcements, my newsletter, just all the great stuff that I talk about in every tutorial. So I hope you enjoyed this and that you make lots of pet beds and oval rugs. Have a great day.